Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Friday, November the 1st. Welcome to November. And I think everybody knows what this means. November is the election in a couple of days. And speaking of the elections, we're going to be talking on Sunday night with our good friend, Barry Castleman. Barry is the Prairie Editor, as we like to call him. He's got a website. And he's been reporting on elections for over 50 years. I mean, the man is a genius when it comes to American elections. And he loves to talk about the Senate. That's kind of been his specialty. So we're going to be talking with him on Sunday night on the audio segment. We're going to be talking with him on the podcast, that is, not the video. And we'll be talking to him and get a sense of the U.S. Senate and what he thinks is going to happen. Now, as I told you yesterday, I'm optimistic that the Republicans will keep the Senate, or will not keep the Senate, but win the Senate and become the majority party. At least 51, at the very least. I mean, the worst case scenario is 51. Best case scenario, you could get into 53, 54, who knows? But 53, 54 would be a very good showing. That would be a pickup of at least 5 seats, which would take you from 49 right now to 53 or 54. So I'm very optimistic the Republicans will win the Senate. And the only question I have, and let's see after I talk to Barry, whether it's going to be 51 or 53, we'll see how that works out. But yes, the Republicans will win the Senate. That prediction I will make today without any hesitation whatsoever. So we'll get into more of that on Sunday night. And again, that's going to be on the podcast and the audio side of the website. Well, let's talk a little bit about today, Friday. And I want to tell you very quickly, I have a post over at the American Thinker about what's happening in Mexico with journalists. Journalists are being killed in record numbers in Mexico. I mean, it is risky to be a journalist in Mexico, particularly an investigative journalist. I don't mean just the people who do the weather and that kind of thing, but I'm talking about if you're out there, especially writing in newspapers or doing your own talk show or whatever, and you are critical of the regime, or you are critical, not so much of the government, let me take that back, not so much critical of the government, but you report on the criminal elements, you're literally putting your life on the line every time you go out the door. I mean, it is that dangerous, that dangerous. The number of journalists, 2 more were killed this week. A young man who had a radio show and wrote for one of the newspapers in the north of Mexico. And then there was another one. I don't know the details of that one. I just saw the headline. So that is really, that is really bad. I mean, that is just terrible. And of course, a credit to journalists in Mexico who are not afraid to go after the bad people and report what they have to report. So let me just, again, sympathies to their families. And what great work these men and women are doing. They've killed women too, by the way. It's not just men who are getting killed. Women are getting killed too. Journalists in Mexico. So I've got a post about that over at the American Thinker. If you want to check that out, please do. It's on the right-hand side where the blog posts are every day. Well, I got to talk about this jobs report. We got another jobs report today. Not a good one today. In fact, a very bad one today. Really bad jobs report. Probably not the best news that Kamala Harris wants to hear, but hey, that is the way it is. But here's the frustration that I'm having with this jobs report. It seems like they keep revising the numbers. They this year alone, over 700,000 jobs have been revised, meaning they told us these jobs existed, and then when they look at the numbers later, these jobs don't exist. So, whatever number they tell you, they revise it down. Now, you may remember that in September, there was a really good number that came out. And everybody was talking about for first Friday of October, there was a great jobs report, 250,000 new jobs. Everybody was talking about it. Well, that jobs report has been revised, okay, as well as others. And now the jobs report this first Friday of November, it's only 12,000 jobs, which is a very bad number. But I think for me, the larger issue and what I'm writing about in a post that should come out tomorrow is what is going on with this place called the Bureau of Labor Statistics. How do they keep getting it wrong? I mean, I've never seen more revisions than I've had here recently. I mean, are these people just incompetent? Is the information that difficult to manage? Or is there something else going on here? Is there something else going on? Because this is crazy. I mean, this is a Bureau of Labor Statistics that people rely on. It's a measurement of the economy. People rely on this information. I mean, you could have elections decided by what's on that Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's how important it is. And yet they keep blowing it. They keep blowing it. I mean, my God, I mean, what's going on? They keep blowing these numbers. I mean, they go up one day and then the next month they revise them down. But this is becoming more frequent. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this happens every year. I just don't remember this happening every year as much as it has here in 2024. So I think that if President Trump is elected, and I think it looks like he will, I think this is one agency that they have to take a very close look at and say, what's going on here? You know, how can you be so screwed up, frankly, when it comes to the numbers? Now, speaking of screw ups, and I have a hard time believing that he said this because Mark Cuban is a pretty smart guy. He's a pretty smart man. I mean, you don't become the businessman that he's become by being stupid. I mean, this is a guy who has accomplished a great deal in his life. I mean, he's a real credit to capitalism, what he did with the Mavericks, the way he turned that franchise around, and what he did in other businesses too, I guess, that he's involved in. So a pretty smart guy. This is somebody who I think most people would look up to. But it seems that here recently he got involved with the Kamala Harris campaign and he became sort of a spokesman, I guess, for the campaign. And he's made some pretty stupid appearances. He had a debate the other day with Bill O'Reilly, where O'Reilly just, with facts, not personally, but just with numbers, destroyed him. Well, you know by now, of course, what Mark Cuban said about women. I mean, how stupid is that? How stupid of a statement is that? I mean, how do you go out and say something that, like, Donald Trump is not surrounded by strong women or whatever he said? I mean, that's just absolutely idiotic to say something like that. He should know better. He should know better. Well, now we hear, and again, has not been confirmed. They wouldn't confirm it anyway, publicly anyway. But we're hearing, sources, as they like to say, telling us that the Harris campaign has basically told Mark Cuban to, just stay quiet, Mark. Stop talking about our campaign. And this is what happens when you go out there and you make a stupid remark. But look where all of this. Look what's happened in a week. You talk about a campaign where it seems like every week there's something new. Every day there's something new. Last Sunday, there was a controversy about what a comedian said at a rally. Remember the garbage, island of garbage remark? Then President Biden, in one of the most idiotic things that any president has ever said, refers to Trump's supporters as garbage. That, of course, creates all kinds of excitement. And now you have Mark Cuban saying this about women and Trump. I know the election is only 3 days away, but there might be another surprise, something else too that could come up. This is crazy. I've never seen anything like this. But really, really, Mark Cuban was just so stupid in saying this. And I say I'm surprised because he's a smart guy. I've seen him a bunch of times talking about issues. So I don't know what happened to him. I just don't know what happened to him. But, I think he's a lot smarter than that. So that's why I'm surprised he would make a statement like he did about Trump and women. It just doesn't add up. Doesn't make any sense. Well, here's a little bit of history for you. On this day in 1800, 1800, President Adams was running for re-election against Thomas Jefferson. And it was a very contested campaign. Let's just say the least. It was a controversial, contested campaign. They called each other a bunch of names. There was a lot of stuff going around in that campaign. If you think the campaigns today are dirty, study that particular campaign. But on this day in 1800, the president and the first lady, Mrs. Adams, they moved into what we now call the White House, the building, that is. They were still building it, but they moved into that location on what we now call 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Well, he moves in, and like about a week later, he loses the election to Thomas Jefferson. So, they move in, and of course, in March, when the new president comes in, remember back then, the inauguration was in March, not in January. So, he moves into this house, and then 3 months later, they have to move out and go back to Massachusetts. These two guys, Jefferson and Adams, didn't like each other a lot. And this campaign made things really bad for them. In fact, John Adams didn't stick around for the inauguration of the new president. In the morning, he just got on the carriage with Mrs. Adams and went to Massachusetts. So President and Mrs. Adams moved into the White House on this day in 1800, but it was not a long stay because they lost the election and had to move back to Massachusetts. What an interesting story. Interesting story about the first couple that actually lived in what we call the White House. All right, have a great weekend, everybody. And I guess the World Series is over, so I'm kind of looking forward to the Cowboys on Sunday. Hope they win. They really need to win. Bye-bye, everybody.